What's up, TLR? I'm so thrilled and excited to be here. If we haven't met, my name is David, and I would just like to thank the friends and everyone who's here tonight. I'm super pumped. Heath originally was supposed to be up here tonight, but as you guys know, he had a baby. Let's give it up for Heath again. Yeah. On top of that, he also broke his face. And some of you guys saw the Instagram post and you were texting me like, yo, what happened to Heath? And so we're glad that you are recovering from the sleep and the face injury. And I'm thrilled to be up here tonight. If you have been here the last 2 weeks, or if you haven't been here the last 2 weeks, last week we did this thing called Spooky Disco, and that was so much fun. Yeah, we had a silent disco in here and a costume contest. Gabe and Thomas won that as the Blue Man group. And they were great. They were incredible. But I also think Christian and Kinsey were a really close runner-up as the Lorax. And the how bad can I be guy? I forget his name. But that guy. Yeah, the one slur. Yes, the one slur. That guy. Yeah. And then 2 weeks before that, if you were here, we started our series, The War You Didn't Ask For. And Chad Ward was up here, and he spoke, and he started talking about how there is a real enemy, and we are at war, and we need to prepare for war. And so we are going to continue talking about that tonight, and we're going to continue to talk about that enemy and how he works against us and how we can defend ourselves against that enemy. And to start off tonight, I have a question, and that question is, what do you think sin is? We hear this word sin all the time, whether it's in church, whether it's talking about Jesus, talking about the Bible. We hear this word sin. And I think a lot of us have created like definitions of sin in our own mind that may or may not be correct. Maybe sin is when I say something or do something that hurts the people around me. Maybe it's when I do something that hurts myself. Is thinking a thought sin? I think so often in my life, I tried to define sin as this line, and it's like, yo, as long as I get up to this line and I don't cross it, I'm good. And the problem with that is, as I grew up, I started to realize Christians put this line in different places. Some Christians were like, yo, you can never drink alcohol, like it's sinful to drink alcohol. Some are like, hey, if you're over 21, it's good, you're good. Some are like, hey, it's always sinful to curse, like you should never curse. Some are like, hey, as long as it's not hurting the people around you, you're good. Some Christians don't watch certain TV shows or listen to certain music because they feel like it's sinful. Others watch the same TV shows, listen to the same music, and they don't have a problem with it. They don't feel convicted of it. Some Christians really emphasize dressing modestly. Other Christians don't think it matters as much. And so if we're all trying to draw a line and Christians are all drawing a line in different places, what really is sin? How can we all be believing in the same God, yet have such definitions of what sin is? And to answer those questions tonight, we've got to stop treating sin like a blurry line that we tiptoe around and start seeing sin for what it really is. Sin isn't just breaking a rule, it's choosing something other than God's best for our life. It's choosing our desires over God's desires. Sin is choosing our desires over God's desires. And we've all been there before. We've all been at a crossroads where there's this thing that we want to do and we know that we shouldn't do it, and we know that God's desire probably wouldn't be that for our life, but we do it anyways, and we fall into it. And I have a story that I feel like exemplifies this really well. And if you guys know me, I hike a little bit. I haven't been hiking as much recently, but back when I was in college, I did this thing every semester called David's Wilderness Adventure. That's what I called it. So I did it 6 different times. I did it 6 semesters, and it always did not go according to plan. I would always have a half-baked plan. I'd be like, guys, we're gonna start here. We're gonna finish here. We're gonna hike 20 miles. We're gonna put it all on our backs, and we're gonna figure it out. And it almost always went wrong. And there was this one time that I remember that it was especially memorable and went especially wrong. And I dragged 7 guys out of my dorm to go on this trip. And I was like, hey, after class Friday, we're all gonna pack up. We're gonna drive to the mountains. We're gonna climb 5 miles up this mountain, and we're gonna camp on the most beautiful spot ever. We're gonna watch the sunrise in the morning. It's gonna be incredible. It's gonna be so cool, guys. Trust me. And so they all trusted me, even though they didn't know that I had 4 trips under my belt. And if they asked anyone who'd gone on any of these trips, they'd know, don't go on one of these trips. And so I dragged these guys out. Here's a picture of the crew that I had out there. It's in the dark. We're using the headlights as a light. But that's my crew that I dragged out into the wilderness, the ones who I convinced to come up with me. And I made the mistake. The first mistake I made is I didn't check the weather. And so I was like, it's going to be great. It's going to be so nice. And the first 4 miles it was. We were walking. It was dark outside, but the weather was so great. We get about 4 miles in of this 5-mile hike. We're on climbing this mountain. It's in Virginia. And it starts raining a little bit. And the guys start looking to me and they're like, yo, should we turn back? Like, it's getting kind of sketchy. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, nah, it's fine. We're good. Like, it's just a little bit of rain that never hurt anyone. And so we get to the top of this mountain, and you guys can probably see where this is going. It starts monsooning down. It starts pouring. And now we're at the crossroads because we're too high up this mountain that if we turn back, like, it's going to be slick. It's dangerous to go back. So we kind of just got to commit at this point. And one guy, everyone brought hammocks, because again, this was my poor planning. I was like, hey, just bring a hammock. It'll be sunny, it'll be great, it'll be warm. And so everyone brought hammocks, and so one guy brought a 2-person tent. And I told him that he was silly for bringing this 2-person tent, but he brought it anyways. And we all 7 of us huddled into this 2-person tent. We're freezing because the weather had dropped. It's raining, it's miserable, and we spend the whole night in this 2-person tent. On top of that, we're wet, we're soaking wet, it's terrible. And I got a picture here. One dude's eating a sausage. He's got a sausage he's eating. Somebody's eating a Slim Jim. I don't even know who took this picture, but we're cold, we're wet. They look like they're having a good time there. We're probably laughing because it smells like sausage in the tent, which just didn't help the situation. I'm angry, I'm wet, I'm cold, and my teeth are like shattering because it's like freezing. The blankets I brought are like soaking wet. Like, it's just miserable. Worst night of my life. We were knocking on the door of death. One dude, I don't know if he's in this picture. I think it's the guy whose head is right here. He told me he'd never go hiking again after this. And guess what? He kept to his promise, because the whole rest of the year he did not go on a single hike with me. So he was about that. He was really about that. But all this to say, I think this is often how sin goes in our life. We think we can handle it. We start going and we're like, I can handle this. It's just one time, it's just one thing. Like, I'm good. I can handle it. And then it starts to rain a little bit. And we start to realize that we're in the midst of it. We're making this decision that we know we shouldn't. And we're like, it's no big deal. I got it. I'm in control. And we don't often realize that we're not in control until it's too late. Until we're on top of the mountain, until it's pouring down, and we realize we're stuck in the middle of this cycle of sin. And I think all of us, just to name a couple of those cycles of sin that we fall into, for some of us, it's a relationship. It's someone that we know we shouldn't talk to anymore, but we like the attention, we like how they make us feel, and so we keep going back to them. For some of us, it's a website that we keep going back to, and we know it's destroying our life slowly. For some of us, it's just an addiction to our phones and scrolling on Instagram and TikTok constantly, and maybe we have busy lives, but whenever we have a moment to rest, we just scroll, and then we feel more empty than we did before. For some of us, it might be alcohol. It might be partying. Whatever it is, we all are stuck in cycles. And I don't want to stand up here and act like I'm not in this. Like, I'm in this with you, which is what made this talk so hard to write, because there is still sin in my life. Spoiler alert, I'm not perfect. I think as I was preparing for this, God continually reminded me of like how desperately I need validation from the people around me, and how desperately I want the people around me to think I'm cool and have it all together. I haven't noticed it. This is so goofy. But last time I preached like a month ago, I got a haircut the day before, because I wanted to look clean. I wanted to look fresh. I was like, I'm going to be speaking. I gotta look nice. And yesterday I was thinking about getting a haircut. And I was like, man, why am I doing it? Am I just doing it so people think I have it together and I look good? And then some of you are probably looking at me right now and like, man, he needs a haircut. Like, his hair is kind of chopped. But that's my cycle that I feel like I'm stuck in, is I so desperately want to prove myself to the people around me, prove that I belong up on this stage, prove that I belong in the spaces that I've been given. And Chelsea once told me, some of you guys remember Chelsea, she worked on the TLR team here. She once told me that, like, hey, you got to remember, you are preaching, you're teaching, you're doing these things from a place of acceptance and not for acceptance. And I feel like whether it's preaching, whether it's teaching, whether it's just trying to fit in and just trying to make friends or being known, like, you are already accepted. And so you don't have to be proving yourself to others. But I still get stuck in this cycle. And tonight, as we're setting the direction for the night, we're going to talk about James chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. A little context about James. James was the brother of Jesus. Fun fact, he didn't believe his brother was the Son of God until after he died. So I can imagine James is growing up with Jesus and he's seeing Jesus do these things. And he was like, man, my brother's full of himself. Like, he's telling people he's God. Like, I don't know about that. And then Jesus dies and he rises from the dead 3 days later and he appears to James. And James is like, yo, my bad, fam. Like, literally, because they're brothers. He says, my bad. Like, and he dedicates his life to following God. And he actually becomes one of the most influential people in the early church. He becomes the pastor/priest of the Jerusalem church. And so we're going to be reading from the book of James today. And James, if you haven't read the book of James, like, he drizzles that biblical syrup in here. I had to sneak it in. If you're new here, that's something I say. It means we're going to talk about the Bible in a way that's sticky. James wrote some biblical bars in here. It's great. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, you should get into the Word and read James. It's awesome. But we're going to start in James chapter 1, verse 13. James lays out this cycle of sin perfectly throughout these next 3 verses. So in James 1:13, he says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. So James starts by defining, he's like, hey, God is not tempting you. God is not trying to get you to fall into that thing that you keep falling into. He's not trying to get you to fall into sin. God is not the one tempting you. And God might put you in trials, and those trials might strengthen you, and that's a sermon for another day, but he is not directly the one who is tempting you, who is dangling the sin, the temptation, the lure in front of you. And in the next verse, he continues to elaborate on what temptation really is. In verse 14, he says, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Here we see that we are truly tempted when we fall into our own desire. When our desires are misaligned with God's desires and we want something that God doesn't want for us, and we fall into our desire and we allow our desire to win instead of God winning. So we are truly tempted when we fall into our own evil desire. And in the next verse, we see what happens if we continue to fall into this desire. In verse 15, he says, then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, gives birth to death. See, when we allow that desire to fester, when we keep thinking about that thing that we know we shouldn't go back to, that thing we shouldn't do, and we eventually make that thought or externally do that action and act upon that thought, then we sin. It gives birth to sin. And then if we continue to get stuck in this cycle, if we continue to fall into that sin, eventually James says bluntly that is going to lead to death. And I think so often we catch ourselves in this mindset of I'm just going to do it one more time. I'm just going to do it one more time, and then that's it, and then I'm done. I'm just going to do it one more time. And when we tell ourselves that we're just going to do it one more time, we're convincing ourselves that God's holding out on us. This thing that I know I shouldn't do is actually good for my life, but God doesn't want me to do it. And when we say we're just going to do it one more time, we still think that it adds something of value to our life. And so we get caught in this cycle, and we continue falling in. I'm just going to do it one more time. And eventually, that leads to death. And to outline this cycle, it always starts with temptation, the promise. Satan always maximizes what we're going to get. He says, it's going to be great. You deserve it. You've been working hard. Just have a couple of drinks. Go to that thing. Text that person you haven't texted in a while. Go to that website you shouldn't go to. He's like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And he minimizes the consequences. He says no one has to know. It's just one time. It's just one night stand. It's just one thing. No one has to know. It's no big deal. And then as he dangles that in front of us and our desires fester, we eventually sin. The fall. We bite. We allow our desires to win. We look away from God's desires. We give into that thing that we said we weren't going to give into anymore. And then we enter the crash, the aftermath. And we start to spiral. We're I thought I was done with this. I thought it was over. And we experience all these different emotions, sometimes all at once, sometimes in different sections. First, we begin to spiral and we experience guilt. Man, I'm better than that. I shouldn't have done that. I feel guilty. And then after that comes disappointment. I thought I was done with that. I didn't think that was a problem in my life anymore. I haven't drank in a month and I finally went back to it, or I haven't watched pornography in so long and I did it again. I'm disappointed. And that disappointment slowly turns into frustration. Frustrated at ourselves, frustrated at God, frustrated that we can't quite nip our desires. We can't nip this sin that is continuing to sit in our life. And then after frustration, it often turns into fear and shame. Fear that, man, if the people around me knew, they wouldn't look at me the same way. Shame that I just continue to fall into this. And I think we can all feel this emotion. Maybe you've seen the meme where it's when I die, delete my browser history. And it's funny, but at the same time, there's so much truth to it, because I know all of us in this room probably wouldn't want our closest friends and family to see everything we search for. Maybe it's text that we've sent in a group chat. Maybe it's pictures that we've taken or have been taken of us in our worst moments. And we experience this shame. We're like, I just don't want anyone to see that. I'm scared that people are going to see that. And that's what keeps us in the cycle. And then we go back to guilt because we fall back into that thing that we said we weren't going to do again. And we fall back into it because we weren't willing to open up. We weren't willing to tell anyone. And so then the cycle continues: guilt, disappointment, frustration, fear, guilt, disappointment, frustration, fear. And we continue in this cycle, and Satan has us trapped. He has us stuck. And Satan isn't stupid. He's not like, yo, let's go to the parking lot and shoot up that heroin needle. Like, no, he's not making it obvious. He is crafty. And today, to illustrate that, I brought a tackle box. Who in here, any big fishermen, fisher people, fishermen, fisherwomen, or fisherwomen? Anyone? Let's go, Cooper. Couple of people, I see a couple of hands. I've dabbled here and there. I've fished before. Back in the day, my dad, grandpa, and brother would take me fishing. I remember one time we were on a boat, and I think it was either me or my brother hooked my dad in the back of the head, and he had to go to urgent care. So I have some experience, if you may. But if anyone's been fishing before, they know that you don't just like dip your hand in the water and like grab a fish. Like, it doesn't work that way. It always starts with a hook. It starts with a hook. I don't know if you can see this. I might even back up. I don't know. Starts with a hook. I got this little silver hook. It's got some metal on it. Ooh, go like that. Thanks, Jillian. There's the hook. And so it starts with a hook, and no fish is swimming around the water, and it sees this hook dangling. It's like, yo, I'm just gonna munch on this hook, and then it's gonna get caught in my jaw. I'm gonna be dragged through the water. I'm gonna be pulled out of the water, and then there's a dude in a Patagonia or North Face sweater looking at me. And he's gonna beat a rock over my head and then scale me. And then he's gonna send me to McDonald's to be in the next Filet-O-Fish. Like, no fish is thinking that's what's gonna happen when I bite this hook. No one does. And so when we fish, you know, we gotta make it look enticing. We gotta make it look real, something the fish would actually want. And so I got a bunch of these squishy things. And so, like, sorry if you guys didn't see it over here, the squishy things. There they are. I don't want to drop them all over the place. All right, I'm gonna use this one. This one looks legit. So then we put this one on the hook. And there it is. And see if I like wiggle that around. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. It looks kind of real. It looks kind of real. Like, I could munch on this for real. It looks like a minnow. It's kind of shiny. That tail's wobbling. Like, this is legit. This is legit. Like, that could catch a fish. Or then the upgrade, I got this little guy. And it's iridescent. It's almost hypnotizing if you look at it enough. And it like wobbles up and down. And it's got hooks. The hooks are obvious. But like, if you get so fixated on like the little rainbow color, then you like forget that there's hooks there. And I could see a fish just munching on this thing. Looks tasty. And we got a frog. Any frog kids in the room? Anyone? Yes, yes, yes. So many frog kids. Like when you guys were growing up and you saw a frog hopping around the yard and you're like, oh, I gotta go catch that thing. Yes, I love that. Yes, let's go, let's go. I appreciate how excited everyone was to say like, yes, I'm the frog kid. That's great. And so this one, it like hops on top of the water and it looks pretty enticing. Heath was telling me, I've actually never had any success with this guy, but Heath was telling me that if a fish eats it, it just like smacks it, like a bass just like jumps out of the water and just grabs it. That would be pretty cool to see. But all that to say, all of these look enticing. They look tempting, they look real. The fish is not swimming around thinking that it's gonna get hooked. It sees the bait, it sees the thing on the hook, and it's like, yo, I think I'm gonna get my next meal. Like, I'm gonna be filled, this is gonna be filling. And then it bites, and it's dragged around, it's controlled, and it's stuck. And this is what the enemy does. This is what temptation does. The enemy hides the hook behind pleasures, attention, comfort. He doesn't want us to know that we're gonna regret it later. He makes it look like it's gonna be something that's good for our life. And he dangles us in front of us and he's like, yo, just bite the hook, just take the hook. And then we do, and we're dragged around, controlled, and stuck. See, Satan's goal is simple. His goal is to hook you and wreck you. He wants you to be stuck in this cycle. He wants you to feel guilty, anxious, unworthy, He wants you to feel depressed. He wants the people around, he wants you to think that you're all alone. He wants to bury you. And here's the thing, Satan wants to bury you, but God wants to bury you too. Satan wants to bury you, but God wants to bury you as well. And maybe that doesn't make sense, maybe it does make sense, but God knows if you continue to live in your desires, if you continue to go back to the same things, that you're going to continue in sin. So he calls you to die. Die to your desires, your control, the version of you that says something feels right. He calls you to die. And it's not just me saying this. There are so many verses in the Bible that back this up. Galatians 2:20 says, I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. Paul's saying like, hey, I no longer live. He's like, once I made that decision to follow Jesus, I'm not following my own desires, I'm following God, and I've been crucified. And I don't know if you know what crucifixion is, but it's not a pain-free process. And he says, I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. In Colossians 3, it unpacks it even more. It says, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. He's saying, if you made that decision to follow Jesus, you said, I believe that you died on the cross for me, I believe that you rose from the dead, I'm gonna follow you now. And so I'm gonna try to make my desires your desires, I'm gonna try to follow what you have that's better for my life than what I have. He says, for you died. And if you've made that decision, you've died. And in verse 5, he adds to that. He says, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. He's like, you died when you decided to follow Christ, but it is a daily death. It is a waking up every day and looking at my desires that don't align with God's desires and putting them to death. It is a constant cycle of dying to ourselves. One of my favorite theologians, he puts it this way, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he says, when Christ calls a man to himself, he bids him come and die. When Christ calls a man to himself, he bids him come and die. See, the beginning of following God and most of the journey is actually accepting that we're already dead. It's accepting that I don't have control. I don't know what's best, but there is a God out there who does. And it's not depressing. It's actually freeing. It's freeing to see that there is a God out there who entered the suffering with us, and I can put my life and trust in him. And there was a story that I feel like brought this to life. I had the opportunity to talk with the campus pastor at Liberty. I went to Liberty University. It's a Christian school, so we had a pastor. Yeah, go Flames, go Flames. But I got to talk to this guy, and it was amidst, I have this podcast, and my podcast's starting to do well. And people on campus were starting to be like, yo, you're the podcast guy, right? And I was like, yeah, I am the podcast guy. Thanks for noticing. And I started getting noticed, and it went straight to my head. And so when I met with this guy, Josh, in his office, there was one question I really wanted to ask him. I was like, hey, how do I try to be humble? Like, how do I be more humble? And his answer has stuck with me for the rest of my life. And it was shocking. I wasn't expecting him to answer this way. He said, here's how you start being more humble. He said, stop trying to be humble. And I'm like, hold up, wait a minute, Josh. Like, I don't think you heard my question. I said, like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to be humble. So why would I stop trying to be humble if that's what I'm like pushing towards? And he responded again. He said, stop trying so hard to be humble and instead tether yourself to reality. He's like, if you're spending your entire life trying to tell people about God and you believe that God is much bigger than you, much greater than you, then the more that you believe the things that you're teaching, the more you'll recognize that you're pretty small in comparison to God. And how what you do is really all for his glory. And that is what dying to ourselves really looks like. The more we die to ourselves, the more we point to Christ, and the more we focus on the right things, and the easier it is to follow him. See, if I keep focusing on the sin in my life, if I keep telling myself I'm gonna stop that thing, I'm gonna stop going to that website, I'm gonna stop that relationship, then I'm gonna keep going back to it because I'm so fixated on the sin. But if I start focusing on God, then I'm gonna start becoming more like him. If you fix your eyes on stopping sin, you'll stay stuck in it. But if you fix your eyes on Christ, you'll grow out of it. And it's so easy to think like, man, if I just work harder to stop this thing, if I just put all my energy into like not going back to that relationship, not going back to that thing, like it'll be better. But really, God calls us to fix our eyes on him. And if we continue to follow him, if we continue to walk with him, one day we'll get down the line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, and we'll realize that those things that we used to struggle with, we no longer desire those things. Because our desires have slowly been aligned with God's desires. And it takes a lifetime, and no one gets to this moment of completion where they've like fully aligned their desires with God's desires. But like Colossians 3:5 said, it's a daily putting to death of the things that are not from God. And I think Romans 6:4 sums it up the best. Romans 6:4 says, we were therefore buried with him through baptism into death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we too may have a new life. See, Paul is saying that in order to start a new life, we must first accept that we're already dead. And just as Jesus died, we have died with him. But here's the thing. Paul said that we would be wasting our lives if we were following Jesus and he didn't come back from the dead. And spoiler alert, he actually doesn't come, or he does come back from the dead. He does come back from the dead, guys. 3 days later, I need you guys to know that part. 3 days later, he comes back from the dead. And so Paul's saying, just like we have died with Christ, we will experience new life with him, just as he experienced new life. Once we finally accept that we're dead, we can experience a new life. A life that is better. A life where we can stop being anxious about what comes next because we know God's got us. A life where no matter what goes on in our world, we know God has a plan for us. A life and a relationship with a God who loved us so much that he entered the suffering with us. There is hope that if we continue to set our eyes on Jesus, give our desires up to him, we may one day look around and realize that we don't desire the things that we used to desire. And so what does this all have to do with this cycle? This cycle that we're trying to get out of, this cycle that we continued to be trapped in. How does this practically look today? What are ways that I can get out of this cycle today? And first, feed your soul daily. I know that's kind of Christian language, but we're all being formed by something. If I'm spending 15 minutes in my Bible every day, 15 minutes praying, 15 minutes talking to God, but I'm spending 2 hours on TikTok, then I'm probably gonna start looking more like TikTok and less like the Word. Two, thank you. Second, surround yourself with life-giving people. Surround yourself with life-giving people. Surround yourself with people who are going to push you to be more like Christ. People who are going to push you towards God. And here's the thing about this part. Here's the thing. If you're going to surround yourself with life-giving people, you need to be a life-giving person to the people around you. If you want people in your life who are going to push you towards God, you need to be that person for the people around you. Third, serve others. I think so often when we're going through difficult seasons, we can get so caught up in our own mind. And we're thinking about, man, my life is hard. I'm going through this. I'm going through that. I have this test on Monday that I'm not ready for. I got to have that conversation I don't want to have. And we become so focused on ourselves that the problems begin to fester. And I've learned in my life so often, when I start looking outside myself and I start serving the people around me, those problems slowly begin to go away. And there's so many different ways to serve others. Maybe you go to this church. There are opportunities to lead kids in Upstreet or leads kids in our middle school environment, our elementary environment, our high school environment. Maybe there are places on UNG where you can get plugged in. For me, I've coached at the Boys and Girls Club, and that's been my opportunity to step out. There's so many places where you can serve. Maybe it's home team here at TLR. But shout out home team. But find a place to serve others. And last, confess quickly. The reason this cycle works so well, the reason that we stay trapped in it, is because we are afraid to open up to the people around us. And so a few weeks ago, I got the opportunity to talk about having people in your life you can be 100% honest with. Find those people, and when you fall short, when you fall into temptation, when you fall into sin, confess it. See, the cycle of sin is not unbeatable. It's a daily battle that takes time. And the Spirit of God living in us is stronger than the lure of sin dangling before us. And the greatest part about this war that Chad introduced 2 weeks ago, this war that we're in, this war against an enemy that is real, the greatest part of it is that the enemy that we're up against has already lost. Yeah. See, Satan is a defeated creature trying to convince the world that he has power. He's trying to convince you that he still has control over your life, that he still has a foothold in it. But the thing is, he's already lost. See, while Satan is the master gaslighter, God has already defeated him. And because God has already defeated him, you don't have to live in fear and shame and guilt anymore. And so as you leave here tonight, I don't want you to ask yourself the question, do I have sin in my life? We all do. I want you to ask yourself the question, what part of the cycle do I need to break tonight? Maybe you need to confess something to the people around you, to a friend, to a small group leader. Maybe you need to look at the habits, your routines in life, and think, what habit do I need to build? What area do I need to start creating in my life that pushes me more towards Christ and less towards my desires? Maybe you need to delete something from your phone. Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's something like that. What part of the cycle do you need to break tonight? See, the cycle of sin doesn't end with us fixating on the sin, but it ends when our desires become more aligned with God's desires. I'm gonna pray. God, I thank you that we get to come in here tonight. I thank you for the small group leaders that show up every week, and I thank you for the friends in this room, and I pray that as all of us have experienced sin, and all of us have some cycle that we feel caught in, that you would offer freedom tonight. And that you would help us take the next step, whatever it may be, to get out of that cycle and to experience new life in you, God. And I pray that we can continue to show up for the people around us and help hoist them up with us. And I pray that we wouldn't leave here dealing with the same things and stuck in the same cycle, but that we would take the next step to defeat the cycle of sin. I just now pray. Amen.